Joe Earth and I are starting a podcast. What should we call it?
Hey, don't pick on me. You know why? Because this is why. Let's see what he says.
The Joe Show?
Give Joe the business?
That's right.
Cup of Joe.
Cup of Joe.
What is happening here?
Would you listen?
We'll give you a chance.
Thank you.
That's Joe.
That's Rooster.
And this is the Together We Shall podcast, episode 48. How are you?
I am well. How are you? Especially even numbers makes me happy. Just
Wait till we get to 50, man. If we're so fortunate enough to have a 50th episode, I don't know, we gotta plan something for that. I don't know.
I hope so, because I feel like that's like in a matter of a couple weeks, and if we can't get to 50, and then like something bad happened.
Yeah, indeed. Well, it's been a good ride so far, 47 episodes. And listener, if you're just finding us for the first time, we invite you to go find us in all the places. Also on Instagram, Together We Shall Podcast has a page there. But I'm not going to plug the podcast, nor are Joe and I going to go with our traditional banter. We have a lot to cover, right, Joe?
Yeah, I think there will be some banter. I think our guest does appreciate a good banter session. But yeah, a wealth of knowledge joining us today, and I'm excited to really just stand back and listen and take some notes, really.
Yeah, super. Well, I guess without further ado, we should bring Kelly in. So, Kelly, welcome to the show.
Hi, good morning. Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Yes. Yeah, we're so pumped to have you. We usually start off with setting the conditions, giving you a chance to say, who are you and where are you physically located? And then thirdly, why do you think you're a guest on the Together We Shall podcast?
Well, first of all, I'm Kelly Piacenti. I am a employee of MassMutual Insurance Company. I actually run their special needs department across the country. I have over 500 advisors that work with special needs families and helping them plan for their future. I was a special needs mom myself. I had 4 children. My son, Nick, was special needs and changed my life in many, many ways and made me rethink my career. And I started working within my company to help educate families like mine about caring for someone with special needs. Unfortunately, I lost Nick 2 years ago at the age of 19, but I certainly lived the life that many of your followers and people you guys work with live as well. So he inspired me in many, many ways to do what I do today. And I try to help families plan and work with them to make everyone's life a little easier. So that's who I am. But I had 4 children. I have 3 others that are all great and very actively involved in the special needs community as well. So what I do at MassMutual is I educate our advisors to work with our families, and I work with nonprofits that are doing great things. So you happen to be one of those nonprofits that we think do a lot of great things. So that's why I'm here today, to kind of speak to your families about what we do.
That's a great introduction. Thank you, Kelly. One piece that I need to clarify and drill in on is people might be hearing that slight accent that you have. Where are you currently physically located and where are you from?
Well, I was trying to avoid that. I like your banter, so I wasn't going to give you something to go off on me about. But I am from Boston. I am from north of Boston originally, which I think you might be hearing, but I have spent the last 20-something years in New Jersey. So I am physically located in New Jersey, though my company is in MassMutual. MassMutual's in Massachusetts. I have been in New Jersey for most of my life.
Well, we got so many places we want to go. Whenever Joe and I were talking with you, we were like, man, Kelly, would you be open to come on the show? Because you started to share with us some of the things that you were getting ready to do in Dallas and that you frankly do all over the country all the time. We need to bottle that up and capture it in one podcast, because both of us, having been around a lot of different things in our day and a lot of different people, still found ourselves with like a million questions. You mentioned 500 employees across MassMutual that you help you educate them so that they are armed with what they need knowledge wise to be able to engage with special needs families. When did SpecialCare become a thing with MassMutual, and kind of what on a very elevator pitch approach is special care?
Well, I mean, it came from, and I did the same thing at MetLife. So we were acquired by MassMutual. So the two of us, the two companies have done basically the same thing. And it's years ago, we decided as special needs parents that when advisors worked with our families, they didn't speak about preserving government benefits for those of us that had a child or an adult we were caring for with disabilities. The saving process is very different. It's not exactly the same. So a group of parents got together and said, we need as advisors to make sure that we're telling families the right things, that you can't leave a child with a disability as the beneficiary on an insurance policy. There were certain things that we needed to do. So special care is really a department within my company that educates families about planning. You can't do the exact same thing with your special needs dependent that you can do with your other children if they're going to need lifelong support, if they're going to need support and services throughout their life, and you're going to need or access government benefits. There's a different way to plan for these individuals. So that's what the advisors I work with do. There are 6,000 advisors at MassMutual, but about 500 work within the special needs arena. So what they do is they work with families like mine, and 86% of them are either a parent, a caregiver, somebody that's philanthropic, but there's a reason that these advisors are in this division. They all have a similar interest as I do. We've been there, we live it, we're around it. There's a reason that they decided to do special needs planning. But what they do is they work with families like mine to try to say, it's great that you want to plan for all your kids, not just for my son, Nick. I wanted to plan for the other three as well. But the process for Nick was different than the other kids because I couldn't leave him money if I passed away. There's a different way to leave Nick money. So that's kind of what my advisors do. They educate families that we don't believe in disinheriting. That was years ago. That was like in the 18th. I say that doesn't exist anymore. But people used to tell us, just disinherit them or leave the money to someone else to care for them. That's not what we do today. The parents of today are not doing that. And there is a way to leave them money to better their lives. So why wouldn't you do it the right way?
Yeah, I love that. That's so perfect. And so if listener, you're like, oh my gosh, I want to learn so much more about this. Well, you know what? It's Miller time. So before we get into that, I saw both Kelly and Joe grab their drinks at the same time. So let's go ahead. That special part of the podcast where we're really going to dig in. We want you to get your favorite beverage. We always look at Josh Goldstein, who lives in South Jersey, uses a feeding tube for his nutrition. We say, Josh, turn to your dad, Dave, and say, hey, bro, turn the doggone machine on, man. I want some Miller time. So Kelly, what do you got in your cup today? Are you allowed to tell
Well,
us?
I have vitamin water. It's early here. I should probably have coffee, but vitamin water is today.
Okay, Joe, what you sipping on this morning?
I have some coffee, and it's.
Okay.
I was trying to find a special mug for our guest, um, but I couldn't find my Dunkin' Donuts mug, so I went with my good old Why Not from Virginia Beach. Because why
Well,
not?
listen, Joe, I'm going to
Coffee.
send you MassMutual mugs. I'm going to send you guys MassMutual mugs. I was looking for one of your mugs, but I gave it to Cheryl because she wanted it. So
Yeah. Mm. Well, I definitely look forward to a MassMutual mug. I can. I don't drink coffee, but I'll figure out what to do with it. In case you're
I will
wondering,
take
today I tried Liquid IV. Liquid IV is something. They have a sugar-free version of that, and apparently it makes your water intake double what it's supposed to do. I don't know if that's true or if it's good marketing, but it's tasty. So I'm going with that. All right then. So if you're out there and you're listening, and you're like, man, there's so many things, so much stuff about what Kelly said that I want to learn more about. How do I find one of these 500 agents?
if you go into the website and you click on the special care area, they will hook you up with somebody locally. So we strategically have them in every state in the United States. They can also reach out to me. You can provide them with my email. I'm never opposed to that. Absolutely. And I will get them someone locally. And the reason that we do that is because the benefits change from state to state. We all have different benefits. There are federal benefits, there are state benefits. There are waiver programs. So we tend to have someone in every state because I don't really know as much what's going on in Virginia as I do in New Jersey or New York. Or so we have people that are in there and they know exactly what's going on within that state and what's available locally, which is really what we're looking for our families. We don't just do financial planning and special needs planning. We actually work with them to tell them, hey, these are local nonprofits. These are people that can help you. This is where you can apply for government benefits. These are some of the things you need. So it's more of a holistic type of planning. It's not just, hey, we don't know anything locally. Sorry, can't help you. We really try to take the extra effort.
So I really want to reinforce what you just said there. That when you think of Mass Mutual, many people are going to say life insurance. Okay, got it. Yes, that is a product that the company offers. But what would you offer maybe three other fairly popular products or things that you might talk to people about entertaining, especially those that have children who may have special needs, as well as children who may not have special needs?
My company is a life insurance company and they do offer that. My division, I don't sell any products. I'm not an advisor. What we do is I educate families about the planning process. So we don't draft special needs trust, but I speak to them about a special needs trust and the importance of it.
What is a special needs trust for the person that's never heard of one?
Well, it's really a way to preserve government benefits and allow the person to have money. So, in this country, if you have a person that you're caring for with special needs over the age of 18, they really can't have anything over $2,000 in their name unless it's put in an ABLE account, achieving better life expectancy, or it's put into a special needs trust. So what happens is they can have the best of both worlds. A special needs trust allows them to have money, but also allows them to have government benefits. So if you want to leave life insurance to the person, if you just want to put money as a gift to them in a special needs trust, they can continue to qualify for government benefits. If you have money in your name over $2,000 and it's directly in your name, the government can take your benefits away if you're getting government benefits because you are a person with a disability. So we try to educate families that you don't have to have this person have absolutely no money. You can put it in a special needs trust. There's a couple different types of special needs trust. There's a first party trust, there's a third party trust, there's a pooled trust. They're all a little bit different, but basically it's the same thing in many ways. A first party trust is a trust that the person with the disability own the money. We often see those when there's a settlement, there's a medical malpractice situation, there's a car accident, and there's some type of settlement that goes to the individual. That money would have to be put into what we refer to as a first party trust because the person owned the money. The difference between a first party trust and a third party trust is when that person passes away with a first party trust, if there's any money left in that trust, the government has the right to lien that trust and say, hey, listen, we gave you all these government benefits all these years. You got Medicaid. We want our money back. If there's money in that first party trust, the government can take the money back. If there's no money in it, it dies there. There's nowhere for them to go. They can't go after the family. And if there's $50 in there and they owe the government 500,000, they get 50 and it goes away. So that's the thing with a first party trust. It's not ideal because of the payback provision, but if the person had money, that is the way that the government requires us to set up that trust. Now, a third party trust, you can put millions of dollars in it. And this person could be getting every government benefit that's out there, including food stamps. They can get everything that they're eligible for, and they can have money in this first or third party trust that's for everything else to make their life better, and it doesn't disqualify them from benefits. So we have families that, they're doing their own planning and they want to, leave life insurance. If they pass away, they say, I want to leave it to my children. Well, you can leave it some to your child with special needs if you have a special needs trust and not disqualify them. So a trust is a way to protect them so that they can have money and have the best of both worlds.
Yeah, that's well put. Thank you so much. I never knew about the difference between a first and a third, much less even a pool party. You said something about somebody was having a party
There's
with
a
a bunch of
pool
people,
trust too, and that's when, there's not a pool party. Yeah, the pool
but it
trust
could
is
be. I don't
really
know.
the pool
Oh
trust.
God.
And and as parents, we look at some of these things, and a lot comes at us at once. And what I say to my families is that, take little bites. I do this for a living. My husband, my kids, everybody in my family are attorneys, and it was still very, very difficult for me to sit down and actually do the planning. So I don't want anyone to be scared by it, because a lot comes at us. They start telling us when they're in school, you got to think about transition. You got to think about, planning for the future. Just do a little bit at a time. It's difficult for our families as it is. Just try to breathe and just do a little bit at a time. So
Yeah,
I would
for
say with a
sure.
pool trust, that's a person that, sometimes nonprofits have pool trusts that they pool the money. So that if you don't have that much money, but you don't want to spend a lot of money on a special needs trust, pool trusts aren't as expensive sometimes, and it allows the person to put in a smaller amount of money. Because sometimes with the special needs trust, people are thinking they need a ton of money to put in. They really don't. But a pool trust is easier, and they're often run by nonprofits. And when the person passes, you do have the option of the money going back to the nonprofit, but there are some pool trusts that the money can go back to the family. So with the third party, the first party in the pool trust, once the government has been satisfied with the first party trust, any remaining money can go back to the family. With the third party trust, any money remaining when the person passes can go back to the family. There's no government involvement. And then with the pool trust, it's optional. It depending upon the company you go with, it can go to the nonprofit, or it can go back to the family. But that's something that if you're thinking about, that you need to have that discussion with that pool trust company and ask them, where does the money go when they pass? Or maybe you want to give it to a nonprofit that's helped you your whole life. So it's really up to
Yeah,
the family.
yeah, definitely. That was, if you're confused, this is more the reason for you to go get. It wasn't confusing. Kelly did a good job, but if you're listening to all that and you're like, man, that's a lot. I don't know which way I want to go. That's why she's got 500 agents across MassMutual who have been educated with and armed with the knowledge to help you make those decisions. Another thing that comes up from time to time, Kelly, I often hear, especially as children might be 15 or 16 or coming up on 18 and maybe exiting high school, is this word of guardianship. Can you educate us on what we need to know about guardianship? Maybe what is guardianship, and whatever maybe lessons you've experienced in the guardianship space in your profession.
Sure. When your child turns 18, and I often use my own son as an example, he was nonverbal, he could only smile. So clearly, he could not make any decisions on his own. He was not able to communicate. But even though he lived in my house and we totally took care of him, at the age of 18, I had to apply for guardianship of my own son. Because if I was to take him to an emergency room, or a physician, as you can tell by the Jersey accent, I would be bossing everybody around, telling them what I wanted, what I didn't want. They don't have to listen to me. So if I didn't have guardianship papers, even though he's my son, and I thought that I was advocating for him, without those papers, they don't have to listen to us. So the government sees at the age of 18, they are considered a legal adult. They do not consider that you're the parent, you're the caregiver. You have to have that paperwork in order to make decisions for that person, regardless of their capacity. So guardianship is really, it does take their rights away. I'm not going to lie. I mean, it's taking their rights away, but guardianship doesn't have to be an all or nothing. Guardianship can be, hey, I want guardianship over medical so that if he needs anything, I can make those decisions for them. Or, hey, I want to have guardianship over financial because I don't want someone taking advantage of them. I don't want, something to happen financially that's a disaster for this person, though, they can make their own medical decisions, but maybe they can't make their own financial decisions. So you as a parent can do partial guardianship, or you can do full guardianship or no guardianship at all. What I say to families are, we have a lot of people with IDD that, can make their own decisions. Don't take it away from them. It's all about getting our kids and our adult children to be able to live independently. If this person can live on their own, make their own medical and financial decisions, can vote, those are some of the things that you don't want to take away from them. So guardianship is really up to the family. It's not something that I have an opinion on either way. What I often say to my families is I have friends that have adult children that are actors, that are, working full-time jobs, that do great things on their own. They don't need their parents to make every decision for them. But the problem we run into with our kids is that our adult kids are extremely generous. I had a friend that, her son would sit next to somebody on the bus in Los Angeles, and they'd say to him, "Can I use your iPad? I'll bring it back to you tomorrow." Perfect example. It's not our kids that are the problem, it's people that take advantage of them. So when you think about guardianship, think about that. We've seen people that, take out a credit card in that person's name. If you don't have any guardianship or right over that, there's not much you can do. So it's protecting that person that you're caring for as well. But guardianship is really a personal decision. It's not for everybody. I have a lot of nonprofits that don't believe in guardianship because you're taking the person's rights away. But as a mom and a caregiver myself, I 100% needed guardianship over Nick because there were many things that we didn't want for him. When it came to, certain medical procedures, I wanted to have a say in that. I didn't want a physician that never met him, that never changed his diaper, making a decision for me. So that was, really where we came at. So I say, as a family member, it's a discussion you should have, but understand that guardianship, you can petition the court. And if the person is able to speak or not even able to speak, the court often requires them to come in because the judge will want to hear, why are you getting guardianship over this person? Because they want to make sure that the family isn't trying to take advantage, because we've seen that as well, right? That people are conserved or have guardianship over someone that they really shouldn't be having it over. So the court is actively involved. An attorney can help you with it. Nonprofits can help you with it. But if you show up at an emergency room, keep in mind, if you don't have that paper or an ambulance comes to your house, hopefully they'll listen to you, but they don't have to.
So basically, everything in a nutshell is that instead of having a DNR, a living will, a power of attorney, all these different documents, you can really sum it all up by just having this one document that the court appoints you as their guardian.
Yeah, I think you can have all of the above, and they refer to it as conservatorship in California. Some of them refer to it as that, but I think this one document for our families is extremely helpful. We have some families that do a DNR, they do different, types of paperwork, and they say, "I think we got it covered." That's fine. But this is an option that's kind of like a catch-all. And for me
Okay.
and my family, it was a necessity. So I think it's up to the family.
Yeah, I love that. And that's ultimately what this whole message and conversation today is about. Ultimately, we're trying to arm families with the ability to make decisions that are educated, that are based in giving you options so that you can basically thrive as a family unit for years to come and not have to worry about the fine print at the bottom of a legalese or something. So no, that's awesome. Joe, you're doing a great job of listening and taking notes. What's on your
I
mind here?
Man, a lot, right? I mean, since meeting Kelly and Cheryl and MassMutual, what, almost 2 years ago, I think now, um, I knew what Kelly did in a a small scope. I knew that she was a boss and a very broad overview of special care. And I'm sorry to admit, Kelly, I don't think I gave the special care section of MassMutual's website enough attention. Um, and it's really good. So for everyone that's listening or watching right now and you got overwhelmed, like Kelly said, do it in pieces. But the website says focus on what matters most, and it's all broken down, which is really great to be able to see and listen to Kelly that it is a process and it does take time, and focus on little things at that time because the little things matter. But it's really great how to reach the goals of those individuals with special needs. So, it's great, Kelly, but I like, as you were saying a lot of these big words and I didn't know what they meant, I had to like Google and look at my screen and follow along and take notes. But it happens. I mean, the guardianship was something that someone that's been in our Andy's Angels family for over a decade had to at the last minute jump through some hoops before her daughter turned 18 to get everything going. And from a outsider, I guess in that perspective, I was like, man, that's a lot. That's overwhelming. But knowing that that is also something that you guys educate on um, is awesome. So very and we're only halfway through this episode.
I mean, and to your point, it's never too late. So I always tell families that too. Even though they may have missed the 18 mark, that's okay. I've had people call me that, they have an elderly parent that's being put into a nursing home and they have a 55-year-old person that has no paperwork. Nothing's ever been done. It's not too late. So, I mean, if you didn't do it and your child is 18 or 25 or 35, and it's something you're considering, it's not too late. So that's
So
something that I like families to know, that not everybody meets the dates. They go well beyond the dates, but what you're speaking about is an emergency guardianship procedure when somebody's taken to a hospital or guardianship needs to be done immediately. It's very, very expensive and it's difficult for families to get. So that's what we try to caution them against, that, that's the worst case scenario. But once again, it can be done as well, but you don't really want to get into that scenario.
that was one of my questions. You said I think how you said like to hit the date. As I was looking at the website, and some of the things are life insurance, disability insurance, and then trust services. Is there like a goal or a target date from, say, I guess, diagnosis, right? Something of right, the official diagnosis that says individual has X, till you want that life insurance or disability insurance or trust, or how soon can you do guardianship?
Well, there's a couple things there. We don't really do like disability insurance because let's be honest, they're not going to put insurance on a lot of our kids. And I know that personally, right? It would be very difficult to get that. But there are types of insurance that are helpful for our parents. What I say to some of our parents, and I don't sell it, I told you I'm not an agent, but long-term care insurance is huge for our families because even though I had all those children and I had a husband, I was the primary caregiver. If I was sick, who would take care of me so that somebody else could take care of my son? So long-term care insurance would be good for my family because at least I'd be taken care of while they had to replace me to take care of Nick. So those are things that I tell our families to think about. The other thing is when you think about life insurance, a lot of our families, it's like a little brick on our shoulder. One of my biggest fears was, what happens when my husband and I aren't around? Who's going to step in? Who's going to take care of him? I had three other kids that were great, but did I really want them to do what my husband and I did? And I didn't. My kids were great. My daughter, my sons, everybody was, willing and ready to jump in, but it's not a life that I wanted for them. So I really wanted a plan, like a backup plan to jump into play. So, I mean, those are some of the things that I struggled with as a parent. But I mean, as far as dates, it's good to start when they're young. But what I say is a lot changes between when they're born, right? And as they develop, some things happen that are great, some things happen that, are not going to be so great. But with my situation, I knew from day one that it wasn't really going to change, that we were in trouble, and that I needed to have some type of plan. Some of the families we're working with, it's a little slower. It's, they're kind of doing a wait and see, which is okay. But keep in mind that the government starts looking at this person 5 years, not 3 years, 5 years prior to the age of 18 to see if the person had anything in their name. So what I say to our younger families are, that little banking, the little checkbook or the account, the little savings account, that you got bonds, you got different things in their names. You don't typically want to do that. You want to stay away from that from day one. because those are some of the things that will be looked at the age of 13. How much was in the person's name? Do they have bonds? Do they have a little account? Those are the things that they're looking at to see if the person had over $2,000. So, I mean, from a planning perspective, you can start thinking about some things to plan for as far as a special needs trust or drafting documents. You don't have to do it when the person is first born. You can think about it, you can decide what you want, kind of assess your situation, then you can go into it. You don't have to do it when the child is newborn, but we do have families that, the family that the child is young and the family starts the process early. And then on the flip side, we have other families that, the mom is 65 or 78 years old and no planning's ever been done. And suddenly they want to do planning. Now, keep in mind that you can't do a special needs trust over a certain age. It is not until I believe it's 65. You can no longer do it, but a pool trust is still available. But you don't really want to get into that scenario. You can set up a trust and leave it unfunded. People often think of, I can't do any planning because I don't have any money to put in it. Most of the families that I work with, the money that goes into a special needs trust is from their own life insurance or a term policy that they have through work. It's creating a legacy where one doesn't exist. But a lot of our families don't have the means. I mean, you got the pile of bills and everything that's coming in and the nursing and the craziness. Planning is the last thing that they think of. So we try to tell families that, there are ways to do it. You don't need the money on hand. Getting some of these documents in place can be expensive for the families. So it's something to keep in mind, but it is something that if you want to protect this person, that you really need to do. I mean, that's, you have to. Our families, when they say to me, Kelly, I don't have a will. Well, let me just tell you, you all have a will. Whether you think you have one or not, the state you live in has one for you. And they don't care if you have a special needs child. If you pass away and you don't have a will, the state will divide the property amongst you. If you just have children left, it'll divide them amongst the children. It doesn't care that one has special needs. And if that person receives more than $2,000, they will get the money from your will, but they lose their government benefits and then have to reapply. So it's something to keep in mind for sure.
That example in and of itself is something that no one would ever have thought of. Two things that I took away from what you said. That youngsters are getting savings bonds from their grandparents. They're getting these gifts, and they're all in good intentions. But as time goes on, they exceed $2,000, and then there is a death, and there is an inheritance, and before you know it, someone has great wealth, and therefore becomes ineligible for so many benefits, which, by the way, cost way more than that great wealth over time. And so ultimately, thank you for highlighting those two elements because they reinforce the importance of just trying to find the time to have the conversation with one of those agents.
And it's
or
tough. I
someone
mean,
else.
it's a conversation you need to have. And I, had to go to my mother-in-law and say, hey, I don't want you to not include Nick, but he can't get the checks like the rest of the kids. And they weren't tremendous, but it was in his name. And we were trying to avoid that, knowing that we were going to have a plan in place for him. Now, we talk a lot about legal documents and things that families need to purchase. There are certain attorneys that you need to go to that specialize in this. Please don't go to your real estate attorney. What I say to my families are, if you're getting a divorce, you don't go to a real estate attorney. Same deal here. I tell my families, these are individuals that are often like us. A lot of the attorneys I work with, there are organizations, the Special Needs Alliance, the Academy for Special Needs Planning, NALA. These are organizations that the attorneys specialize in drafting these documents. Those are the people that you want to draft those documents. If you're not at a stage that you cannot do any of this, or financially you just don't have the means to do it, there's something called a letter of intent. It's not legally binding, but what it is basically, and we have a form at MassMutual that I can certainly share with you guys, and anyone that wants it can have it. But it's a form that talks about your hopes, your wishes, your dreams for this individual. Now, though it's not, a legal document, they have been used in a court of law and they have been upheld. And it's saying, when I pass away, I don't want him to live in a group home. I don't want him around this, deadbeat dad that never saw him when he was a child. Whatever it is, it's the family's hopes, wishes, and dreams. It's, I don't want him to live with his siblings, or I do want him to live with his siblings. I want these people involved in his life. These are the medications that have worked. These are the medications that don't work. These are the physicians that were amazing. These are the physicians I wouldn't bring my dog to. These are the treatments that have been successful, right? Ketogenic diet, how long he did it, what he did. He was GJ fed. What are some of the things that were helpful for us? Those were all the things in there. And as I had said in the beginning, and anyone that knows me knows this is true, my son's letter of intent was in a notebook, was like this big. Because even though I had a husband, there were a ton of things I did that he didn't know about. My son didn't want his teeth brushed with, cold water. It had to be hot water. He hated chocolate. I don't know how I got a kid that hated chocolate, but I did. When he did eat, these were some of the things, right? I was born and raised in Boston. My whole family's there. I would put in my letter of intent, don't ever take my kid to a Yankee game, just because I didn't like the Yankees, right? And I thought that if I was advocating for Nick, so be it. That's what Nick would say. So, I mean, there were things like that, but there's other things you can put in there. You do want them to get married. You don't want them to get married. Religion. There were certain things that people liked about religion that they wanted to put in there. You can put what's ever unique to your family, because I tell my families, a letter of intent, every person listening to this should have one somewhere in their house if they're caring for somebody with a need. Because if you don't show up at home, it's like the letter to the babysitter on steroids. It's kind of the directions of do this with him or don't do this with him. These are the things that have worked. These are the things that don't work. And put it with your vital documents. And if you don't have any documents, give it to someone in your family that knows it's there, so that if you're sick or you don't appear, they can reference it. And my son didn't speak. So who would tell him all the things I did with him that just him and I did? Nobody. So it's great to have a plan up here, but if it's not on paper, no one can help with that. So during COVID, I had a lot of families come to me and say to me, Kelly, that was one of the best things that we ever did, because we had young people, young caregivers, not able to perform their duties, right? They didn't come home. They were stuck in hospitals. They passed away. Somebody had to step in that never even was around this person. And the person with the disability couldn't communicate to them. So a letter of intent is huge for our families. It doesn't cost anything. It's a form. Put it in a notebook. Write it down. But we do have, a copy of some of the things you want to put in there. But I say every family that I speak to, if you do nothing else, please do this, because the person you're caring for needs you to do it, because it's so important. Some of the details that you can put in there that make their life better.
That's solid. Like, so if you want a letter of intent format, Kelly's going to provide one to us. Email podcast@ainsleysingles.org, and we will reply with that letter of intent document.
It's like a letter to the babysitter on steroids. And for our families, and a lot of our families don't have the means, or they just don't have the time, there's no excuse not to have it. And, we deal with a lot of individuals that, at least, the ones that I know, they can't make their own decisions, right? We have these physicians that look at our kids and I'm going to trach them, I'm going to vent them, I'm going to do this just because of their disability. That's not always the wishes of the family. And that always bothered me, because the one thing we said when Nick was born is if he can't breathe on his own, then I don't think he wants to live. We felt that way as a family. And that's something I talk to families about. Have a discussion. Let's talk to everybody about their role. You may not want to be the person that cares for him, but maybe you're the person that does the financial side. But as a family, what role do you want to play? Because not all kids, siblings, want to be involved. They're sick of that person and they don't want anything to do with them. And I deal with that a lot too, that the siblings are resentful because they took the parents' attention away, or the siblings are all screwed up as a result of it. So, I mean, we try to say have a family discussion to find out what role everybody wants to play. But, next time, or there's a time that I speak with you guys again, I would add that in. But we try to educate families that, it just takes a long time, and don't feel like you have to do all this overnight, because you don't. It's not going to happen all overnight. I mean, mine was a perfect example. I didn't go for my son's guardianship, for quite a while. I was like hesitating and not doing it. And I do this for a living. So, I mean, it's things like that. Like, it's tough on these families. And that's why I try to say just do little bits at a time, because they have so many medical concerns. They have so many financial concerns that this is like the last thing for them to think about.
You're talking about like the sibling maybe like, ugh, standoffish. So yeah, that was a
It,
a good
we have
connection.
some that say to me, Kelly, I want nothing to do with him. My whole life, my parents took care of him and ignored the rest of us. And that's okay. I mean, but we have these parents that think the siblings are going to do it. They're just going to take over for me. And these siblings don't want to do it. And my suggestion is have that family meeting and have that discussion so that that comes out. And it's okay, but it gives you the fuel to do something else. Pick somebody else, because it's not going to be the sister.
Is any of this reversible, right?
Yes,
As like practice of medicine evolves, there might be cures of things or whatever, different treatments that bring back X, Y, or Z. So like
Sure
some
it
of
is.
those
If it's a
barriers.
first party trust, that's what the court makes you do. But I mean, they're irrevocable trusts. But if you set it up and you never fund it, get rid of it. It's something that you're not tied. People do special needs trusts and they never use them, and they want to dissolve them or get rid of them. Able accounts, you can set it up. They only cost like about $30 a year for Able. And you don't want it, you get rid of it. But the trust is a little different, because if it's a first party trust, you can't really get rid of it, right? Because the court tells you when there's a settlement, put the money in there. But for somebody that does a third party trust because they think they might need one, but they never do, they can get rid of it. So, yes, your question, guardianship is an annual review. So once you get guardianship, doesn't mean you're going to get it every year. It's reviewed every year by the court. And the court is really, cautious, because we have a lot of people that take advantage of people with special needs. So, I mean, that's part of it. So the court will review, well, why do you need guardianship of this guy that's working, that makes his own medical and financial decisions? There's no reason why you have it.
I love the idea of having a letter of intent through the vision of really the legal aspect. And you said some of these things have been upheld. At its core, our law is really about intent. It's you try to remove emotion. They say love is blind. At the end of the day, like what was or is the intention behind that action or behind that decision? And so I can see why it was upheld and why it goes a long way. So thank you for mentioning that. I'd never heard of that tool. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's great, and it doesn't cost anything. And that's why I say there's no excuse. We need to do that as family members.
You talked about the New York Yankees situation. Somebody's going to appeal that, and then if the Circuit of Appeals is in New York City, you may lose. So while love is blind and so is justice, sometimes things run deep.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Not,
There's nothing I can do. If I walked in
yeah.
my house with one of those hats, I'd be in trouble.
My oldest is getting ready for spring baseball, and one of his friends was like, "I hope we're on the Yankees." I was like, "You're not playing then. It's just not gonna. It just you have to wait till fall. Like it's just not.
See,
It's
Joe,
just
I know
not
I'd
gonna
like to.
happen." I got it's the Boston colors on because I wore my Red Sox stuff last podcast, but I got the Red Sox pillows that the dog was on. But yeah,
We're gonna have to take care of you, because MassMutual is the main sponsor now.
so you said
All right,
that
I'm
last
letting you
time we
know.
talked. I just I can
Yeah.
be on a plane
Yeah,
and
I've never
this
been
is
to
done recording.
I've never been to Fenway, but I'll just throw that out there. Anyway, hey, so last time we saw you, Kelly, we were in Boston actually, because MassMutual has done some pretty special stuff with Ainsley's Angels over the past 3 calendar years now by being financial supporters for the curriculum development of our allied development program. And how fitting is it, that everything you just talked about is really being an ally and showing up in ways that to help people thrive, or to be taken care of, or to be in safe places. And so we contacted you. We learned about the special care program and how wonderfully it connected with this idea of allyship, and we worked through that. With your help, MassMutual was able to make it to where we have curriculum in place now, and we kicked off our very first cohort back in November, and we saw you there because you got to participate for a full day. So I'm curious, what did you think of that kickoff day? And what would you tell somebody who is considering applying?
I mean, I was inspired by it. You can see I'm extremely passionate about this community, having lived it myself, and just going there and hearing everybody's story and how much they want to help. It kind of warms my heart. And I don't say that to all my nonprofits. I work with 20, I sit on 2 national boards. I mean, I'm really, all about helping our community. And I love that it's educating them and it's about educating people. And that's really what I try to do. Even though, yes, I get paid by MassMutual, but a lot of it comes from my heart because I truly believe in what I do. Some people have a job that, you do it because you have to do it. I do this job because I love this job. And I get to meet organizations like yours. And I don't attend every meeting like that. And I made a point of doing it because I really wanted to see what it was about. And, just meeting the individuals that are doing it, I was truly inspired. And that's a word that I used when I got back and I was speaking to my office and telling them about it, that I love it because I love the educational part of it. And I love what they're going to go out and do within the community. And it's really spreading the word, right? If we don't help each other, we're not going to go anywhere with this. And I love that everybody was so inspired and hyped up about going back. And I got to meet quite a few people and speak to them about their own personal story. And I think it was great. I mean, when I, quit my job, I'll have to become part of one of those individuals. But it's great. And I think that, you should have 20 more or 100 more because I think they can spread the word. And I love what they're doing.
Yeah, we appreciate that. And for all the listener who may not be fully tracking, and we were trying our best to educate all people about what this program is, but the Ally Development Program essentially arms and educates every person who is in the cohort with what they need to show up better in their communities as an ally, specifically for those who have disabilities, but also being an ally really for humankind. And that really just starts with doing some development internally. And so we adopted this strategy of everybody's been stuck in a rut before. And the best way to get out of a rut, the first thing you got to do is really reflect upon how you got there and then have the courage to ask for help so that you can unite, and then ultimately we can get to a point where we can transform. So reflection, uniting, and transforming, and that's what we arm them with. And Kelly, you said you think we should have another 20, 30, 50, 100 of these. We will, so long as we can continue to find the resources. And now I come full circle and just say thank you, MassMutual, for trusting in us. Thank you, Kelly, for trusting in us. And thank you for an additional contribution to power our second year, our second cohort, which, listener, if you're interested this summer, you will see the opportunity to apply. So I had to
Yeah.
talk
And I
about
mean,
that
great
because it means
speakers
so
too, Rooster.
much.
You had great speakers there that were really, you didn't have it. They were great speakers. That's all I can say, but very impressive and great opportunity for those that want to jump in. It's excellent. It's something that's very unique and different. And I haven't seen that out of other nonprofits. So I'd say keep going. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
As we're approaching the finish line of cohort one, just in terms of their graduation, right? And the 8 of them are going to go on and continue to do great things in their communities. It's getting that like nervous, anxious, excited feeling. I mean, like Rich talked about the rut, and we just wrapped up our 8th lesson. Talking about communication and leadership and all this stuff, and now they're actually submitting their inclusion projects. If you remember, they have to formally present and say, hey, this is how I'm going to do everything. This is everything I need. This is what I've done. And it's just great. Since November, they're still all in. There hasn't even been a little bit of that like fallback. They all 8 are fully in, not only their communities, but the Ainsley's Angels aspect of their communities. So it's really exciting. Yeah. And to think about 20 or 150 more gives me the good anxiety, but also a little anxiety.
Well, Joe, you just said something that made me think, like these folks are creating what we're calling community inclusion projects. SpecialCare was not something that just, MassMutual was like, we need to do that, or MetLife was like, we need to do that. No, it started with somebody having this idea that we have to be allies and we have to show up for families and for people. And the best way that we can do that is through financial planning, because that's what that person was passionate about per se. So the same idea is what we're applying to our ally development program members. Is this something that they can get energized behind? And who knows? One of these folks could create the next SpecialCare or the next Ainsley's Angels or the next Special Olympics. Like, that's the vision. Inclusion without limits, but with an eye towards all it takes is one of these folks to create something that can last for 100 years, Kelly.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's if you think about the nonprofits, most of them were, moms or dads sitting at a kitchen table. That's how many of the large nonprofits were created. What I say about my organization is kind of like grassroots within a corporate setting. It's, I'm in a corporation, but it's really, like a nonprofit in many ways in what I do. But many nonprofits were created by parents and caregivers that had an idea or wanted to make something better. And that's how they were created. So totally agree with you.
The parent caregiver creating a nonprofit and, a house is, full circle, considering Rooster is sitting not too far right now from when that happened, God, 13 years ago.
Yeah, I'm actually in Louisiana for the recording of this episode. Long story why I'm here in March or April, but I am, and it's actually like the physical address for Ainsley's Angels of America where I am. So yeah, Joe, good connection there. And it all really starts with conversation and idea, and really just giving someone the space to think and imagine and reflect, and then giving them the confidence and the support through your own allyship to say, yeah, you can do this. This is a good idea. But next thing you know, man, it's that snowball effect. And now from my vantage point, we have, 40,000 people across the country and, 700
Amazing.
to 1,000 races a year. And we're going outside of the race course now with things like this program. So thanks for believing in us, Kelly, when we first pitched this to you a long time ago now.
Absolutely. This is a great organization. And I'm glad that you came to me. I'm happy to be involved.
It's not lost on at least the viewers, Kelly, that you are wearing pink today.
I did that strategically. Did you notice that?
Oh,
The
yeah.
pink and black. I was going to wear
Yep.
my t-shirt, but then I thought, oh, I better not.
Yeah. Yeah. No, look, thank you for that. Thanks for the nod. It wasn't lost on either one of us. So 2024, we're through the first quarter. What do you have coming up for the rest of the year by way of whether it's, personally, professionally, MassMutual, SpecialCare? Like, what are the big things that perhaps our listeners would love to hear are on the horizon?
Well, I mean, I travel quite a bit. I travel about 90% of the time. Personally, my oldest son is getting married in August, so we're really excited about that. And I have a junior in high school, my youngest, and we're going to be looking at colleges across the country. So that's exciting. As far as work, I have workshops and educational meetings across the country. I have a pretty heavy schedule in the summer months. But what I do is I do workshops. I do a workshop on letter of intent. It's 45 minutes. So even though I gave them a quick overview today, we actually spend time with nonprofits and families across the country. And I think we're going to do something with you guys sometime in the future. But it's really, putting information out there for families. So most of my travels and my trips across the country are working with families, that have someone they're caring for, and it's educating them to make the process a little easier. So that's really what my schedule is. But other than that, I'm sitting here doing nothing, but I'm
Oh, yeah,
usually pretty
nothing. Yeah.
busy.
Yeah, nobody's believing that nothing thing. So you said a letter of intent. First of all, congratulations on all the wonderful things happening in your life and with your children, and they're growing up, and
Thank
you're getting
you.
to do the full board mom thing and have a little fun while you're at it. That's exciting. I remember doing college tours with Briley and seeing different things and just the energy that you can live almost vicariously through them as they're trying to figure that out. It's fun. You said you do the workshop specifically on letter of intent. Are there any other workshops that you have done or do that could be I don't know, good topics to talk about?
There's 12 of them. So, yeah, there's quite a few. We do one just on special needs trust. We do one on planning. We do 10 easy steps for financial planning. We do quite a few. We do one on ABLE accounts to let our families know how to utilize them. We don't offer ABLE accounts, but we talk to them about the usage. of ABLE, which is confusing, but ABLE is a great option for some of our families. So we talk about ABLE, we talk about special needs trust, we talk about anything that leads to planning for the family. And our workshops are typically, like 45 minutes, and then we do 15 minutes for questions for families, but we're not soliciting, we don't ask for their information, there's nothing for me to sell because I don't know how to sell anything, but we do try to educate the families, and we do quite a few of them. And we can certainly send you guys the descriptions of them, or at least, the top 3 or 4 that would be good for your families. And we're happy to do that.
Yeah.
I'll do them for you.
And do the 500 folks that you educate across the country, do they do these workshops, or is this Kelly's workshops?
Nope, 100%. They do the workshops, and they'll do them for parent groups or nonprofits across the country. So if you have a parent group, or there's 5 or 6 or 10 of you that want to sit down and hear it, we do have advisors that do them.
So listener, if you are still with us into this episode and you're all in on trying to just educate yourself on as much as possible, email podcast@AinsleysAngels.org and tell us where you're located. And then we can work with Kelly and get you connected through probably a simple web page to where you can find the right person. Or like Kelly said earlier, go to MassMutual, click on SpecialCare, and find that agent near you. There's so many ways to get you connected, and it sounds like there's so much resource out there that's also educational and aiding in planning. What else would you add to what I just said, Kelly?
Try not to be overwhelmed by it, and just see what's out there, try to gather the information and take little steps. That's what I always tell all our families. And you don't have to plan with MassMutual. It's just you need a plan, because this person depends upon you. And if something was to happen, some type of plan has to be in place for not only the person you're caring for, but your other family members as well.
Yeah, no, that's solid. That's really good. Joe, I think we're approaching the part of the show where we start to wrap things up. But what do you got, man? Again, I feel like this is an episode where you haven't had a chance to speak as much as you typically do. But I do applaud you for being that good student today. What are you thinking?
There's listeners that are going to hear all this information and be ahead of the curve, and those that are behind the curve. But like Kelly said, just start, crawl, walk, run type of thing. Because I know, I have of recent started doing a lot of this, from a non-special needs side, and even that's been overwhelming at times. Losing 3 parents in an 18-month window. Between my wife and I, it's like, man, there's a lot that goes on, and now I've learned even more. I knew that there was a lot more for special needs, and now I've really learned that there was a lot more. So please, if you're listening, whether you have someone with special needs that you're taking care of or not, just start that all around life planning. It's never too late.
Kelly, we love that you took some time today. We're grateful. We definitely can. We definitely feel that you are an ally of what we do, and we are grateful that you show up and make time for us. And anytime we ask, you do that. And so I'm extending gratitude from one human to another, from one person who has had a loved one in their life who has passed away, that will always motivate us as we go forward and keep them in our hearts. And so you and I have always had this thing that we've been able to connect on by way of those that we love so very much. And so I'm glad that the first time I met you didn't end with, okay, yeah, I met Kelly, okay, let's carry on with life, but rather we've taken time to make meaningful connection out of our introduction. So sincerely, thanks for taking the time.
Thank you guys.
What we want to do now is close out with, Kelly, as people are going to finish out this podcast and carry on with their day. No pressure. But what do you want to leave the listener with as our final audible before we roll credits?
Well, I just want to thank you for having me and say that, we're all in this together. And everybody's at a different place. It's just taking the time to do this little by little. And thank you. I mean, I love being an ally. I want to be part of anything that you guys need me for. And I would just say, don't feel like you're alone. We're here, and I'm certainly a resource if you need us. And just happy I was able to do this today.
You know what? I got enough.
He's in charge.
We're done. This was good.
Yeah, we're done here. The structure of this building has reached its capacity.
Find your people, and if they make you feel sexy, even better.